This case interested me more than anything. I have been after this video for a long time. I wanted to get it out there, make a video about it, let the world know what happened to Black Dahlia. Her real name was Elizabeth Shorts. She was only about 22 years old, and the more you find out about this case, the more disturbing it gets. If you read the FBI report on this that is available for public, you should be able to see her photo. She was very beautiful. The, the title of the article is Black Dahlia as well. I don't know how the official name was changed to Black Dahlia. Must have been very interesting. It is said to believe that on the morning of January 15, 1947, a mother who was taking her child for a walk in LA saw the body. And the body was so clean, she thought it was a mannequin. The body of a young, naked woman, sliced clean in half at the waist. The body was just a few feet from the sidewalk and posed in such a way that no one would think it was a body. Elizabeth was a native of Boston. She spent her early life in New England and Florida before coming to California to become an actor. It was found that that's where her father was, in LA. It is commonly held that she was an aspiring actress. She had no known acting credits or jobs during her time in LA, though. Shorts acquired the nickname of the Black Dahlia after she was dead, as newspapers of the period often nicknamed these kind of murders and crimes. The term may have originated from the film. It was a thriller, The Blue Dahlia. After the discovery of her body, the Los Angeles Police Department, LAPD, began an extensive investigation that produced over 150 suspects, according to Wikipedia. She was born on 29th of July 1924 in Boston. Her father is believed was making miniature golf courses until he lost most of his savings in the 1929 stock market crash. His car was found abandoned on the Charlestown Bridge, and it was assumed that he had jumped into a river. Believing her husband to be deceased, Scott's mother began working as a bookkeeper to support the family. She had asthma as well. She underwent a lung surgery at the age of 15, after which doctors suggested she periodically relocate to a milder climate to prevent further respiratory problems. And Shot's mother sent her to spend winters with family and friends in Miami, Florida for the next 3 years. And Elizabeth dropped out of Medford High School during her sophomore year. 1942, Shot's mother received a letter of apology from her presumed deceased husband, which revealed that he was in fact alive and had started a new life in California. In December of that year, at age 18, Elizabeth relocated to California to live with her father, whom she had not seen since the age of 6. At the time, her father was working at the nearby shipyard on the Bay Area. Arguments between Elizabeth and her father led to her moving out in January 1943, which means uh, she was with her father for a very short time. And depending on the details we just uncovered, I think I think she had a very troubled childhood. I think she was alone in spite of having both the mom and dad. She didn't get the warmth and the protection a child would get from the parents. This could have led to possibly some decisions that she made that led to the murder. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying she was the reason of her murder, but it has to play some part in it, right? Your personality, how you are, does determine what happens to you. What is your opinion on this, listener? Do you think that's correct? Well, moving on, while in Florida, she met Major Matthew Michael Gordon Jr. He was an Army Air Force officer for the 2nd Air Combat Group who was training for development to Southeast Asian theater of World War II. Shorts later told her friends that Gordon had written to propose marriage while he was recovering from injuries from a plane crash in India. She accepted his offer, but Gordon unfortunately died in a second crash on August 10th, 1945. Short's sister, Dorothea, also served in the war and was assigned to decode Japanese messages. In July of 1947, Elizabeth relocated to Los Angeles to visit Army Air Force Lieutenant Joseph Gordon Flicking, an acquaintance from Florida. who was stationed at the Naval Reserve Air Base in Long Beach. Elizabeth spent the last 6 months of her life in the Southern California, mostly in the LA area. Before her death, she had been working as a waitress and rented a room behind the nightclub on Hollywood Boulevard. This is just a basic understanding of what her life was before she was killed. But this gives a lot of insights into what went on with her. I I feel for that girl and I feel that she deserved more in life. On January 9th, 1947, Elizabeth returned to her home in LA after a brief trip to San Diego with a guy named Robert, a 25-year-old married salesman she had been dating. Manley stated that he dropped shots off at the Biltmore Hotel, downtown Los Angeles, and that Shots was to meet one of her sisters who was visiting from Boston that afternoon. By some accounts, staff of the Biltmore recalled having seen Short using the lobby telephone. Short after allegedly seen by patrons of the Crown Grill cocktail lounge at the South Olive Street. It was about 600 meters away from Baltimore. On the morning of January 15th, 1947, her naked body, cut into two pieces, was found in a vacant lot on the west side of South Norton Avenue. This area was largely undeveloped at the time. Her severely mutilated body was completely cut at the wrist and drained of all blood, leaving her skin a pale white color. Medical examiners determined that she had been dead for around 10 hours prior to the discovery, believing her time of death either sometime during the evening of January 14 or the early morning hours of the 15th. The body had apparently been washed by the killer. Elizabeth's face had been slashed from the corners of her mouth to her ears. You know, the smile that Joker gives everyone in the film Dark Knight. Just like that. She had several cuts on her thigh and breasts where entire portions of flesh had been sliced away. The lower half of her body was positioned a foot away from the upper half, and her intestines had been tucked neatly beneath her buttocks. The corpse had been posed with her hands over her head, her elbows bent at right angles, and her legs spread apart. It was like a sick joke to the killer. LA Herald Express reported Edgy Underwood was among the first to arrive at the crime scene and took several photos of Scott's body and its surroundings. An autopsy was performed on January 16th, 1947, by Frederick Newbar. Autopsy reports stated that Elizabeth was 5 feet 5 inch tall, weighed 115 pounds, and had light blue eyes, very beautiful brown hair, and badly decayed teeth. There were ligature marks on her ankles, waist, and neck, and an irregular laceration with superficial tissue loss on her right breast. Newbar also noted superficial lacerations on the right forearm, left upper arm, and the lower side of the chest. Elizabeth's body had been cut completely in half by a technique taught in the 1930s called a hemicorporectomy. I'm sorry for butchering that word, but hey, it's not my job to know these words. The lower half of her body had been removed by translecting the lumbar spine between the second and third lumbar vertebrae, thus serving the intestine at the duodenum. She was identified after her fingerprints were sent to the FBI. Her fingerprints were on file from her 1943 arrest. The event that took place after the identification of her body, it's very disturbing and heartbreaking to know that this lengths were taken or these kind of extreme steps were taken just for the sake of views, or if I'm not wrong at that time, people buying your paper. Some reporters from Los Angeles Examiner contacted her mother, Phoebe Schatz, in Boston and told her that her daughter had won a beauty contest. They pried as much personal information as they could from Phoebe with that lie. They even paid for Phoebe's airfare and accommodation if she agreed to travel to Los Angeles to meet her daughter, just so that they can keep or protect the scoop of this murder from her mother for themselves. The Examiner and another Harvest newspaper, the Herald Express, later sensationalized the case, with one Examiner article describing the black tailored suit Shorts was last seen wearing as a tight skirt and a sheer blouse. The media nicknamed her the Black Dahlia and described her as an adventuress who prowled Hollywood Boulevard. Additional news reporters and newspaper reports, such as one published in LA Times on January 17, deemed the murder as a sex friend slaying. On January 21, a person claiming to be Shot's killer placed a phone call to the officer, James Richardson. He was the editor of the Examiner, congratulating Richardson on the newspaper's coverage of the case and stating he planned on eventually turning himself in, but not before allowing police to pursue him further. Additionally, the caller told Richardson to expect some souvenirs of Beth Short in the mail. 3 days later, a suspicious manila envelope was discovered, addressed to the Los Angeles Examiners and the Los Angeles papers, with individual words that had been cut and pasted from newspaper clippings. Additionally, a large message on the face of the envelope read, "Here is Dahlia's belongings. Letter to follow." The envelope contained Short's birth certificate, business cards, photographs, names written on pieces of paper, an address book with the name Mark Hansen embossed on the cover. The packet had been carefully cleaned with gasoline, just like her body. On March 14, an apparent suicide note, scrawled in pencil on a bit of paper, was found tucked in a shoe in a pile of men's clothing by the ocean's edge at the foot of Breeze Avenue in Venice. The note read, "To whom it may concern, I have waited for the police to capture me for the Black Dahlia killing, but have not. I'm too much of a coward to turn myself in, so this is the best way out for me. I couldn't help myself for that, or this. Sorry, Mary." The pile of clothing was first seen by a beach caretaker who reported the discovery to lifeguard Captain John Dillon, and he immediately notified Captain L.E. of West Los Angeles Police Department. The clothes included a coat, some trousers, and some t shirts. The clothes gave no clue about the identity of their owner. Police quickly deemed Mark Henson, the owner of the address book found in the packet, a suspect. Henson was a wealthy local nightclub and theater owner, and an acquaintance at whose home Short had stayed with friends. According to some sources, Henson also confirmed that the purse and shoe discovered in the alley were in fact shots. A total of 750 investigators from LAPD and other departments worked tirelessly on Short's case during its initial stage, including 400 sheriff's deputies and 250 California State Patrol officers. Various locations were searched for potential evidence, including storm drains through LA and abandoned structures and various sites along the LA River. But the searches yielded no further evidence. LA City Councilman Lloyd G. Davis posted a $10,000, equivalent to 140,820 in the current time, as a reward for information leading police to Shot's killer. After the announcement, various persons came forward with confessions, most of which police dismissed as false. By the spring of 1947, Shot's murder had become a cold case with a few new leads. Sergeant Finis Brown, one of the lead detectives on the case, blamed the press for compromising the investigation through journalists' probing of details and unverified reporting. In September 1949, a grand jury convened to discuss inadequacies in the LAPD's homicide unit based on their failure to solve numerous murders, especially those of women and children, in the previous several years, Shots being one of them. In the aftermath of that grand jury, further investigation was done on Shot's past, with detectives tracing her movements between California and Florida. They also interviewed people who knew Shots in Texas and New Orleans. However, the interviews yielded no useful information in the murder. Several crime authors, as well as police detective Peter Merrill, has suspected a link between the Shot murder and the Cleveland Torso murders, which took place in Cleveland, Ohio, between 1934 and 1938. As part of their investigation into other murders that took place before and after Shot's killing, the original LAPD investigators studied the Torso murders in 1947 but later discontinued any connection between the two cases in 1980. New evidence implicating a former Torso murder suspect, Jack Anderson, was investigated by St. John in relation to Shot's murder. He claimed he was close to arresting Wilson in Shot's murder, but that Wilson died in a fire on February 4th, 1982. The possible connection to the Torso murder received renewed media attention when it was profiled on the NBC series Unsolved Mysteries in 1992, in which Elliot Ness biographer Oscar Fraley suggested Ness knew the identity of the killer responsible for both cases. Elizabeth was connected Also, to lipstick murders, lone women murders, and some other theories as well. According to newspaper reports, shortly after the murder, Short received the nickname Black Dahlia from staff and patrons at a Long Beach drugstore in mid 1946 as wordplay on the film Blue Dahlia. Other popularly circulated rumors claimed that the media created the name because Shorts had very beautiful black hair. Many true crime books claim that Short lived in or visited LA at various times in the mid 1940s, including Gilmore's Severed, which claims she worked at the Hollywood Canteen. This is disputed by Harnish, who stated that Short did not, in fact, live in LA until after the canteen's closing in 1945. There are a lot of other details floating around related to this. There is a whole official FBI report that you can read on the same case as well. But now, after so many years, why do we care about this kind of a thing? A murder that took place in 1947. I guess this is to understand humans because right now all of us are very inclined toward views and likes and subscribers. In the same way, the media that is blamed the reason for this unsolved case. That is why the media stoop so below the accepted line that she lost all her dignity after dying. And that says something the society is not ready to accept. It says that we are entertained from tragedies of others